How you doing? All right. I thought I'd talk about reformation today. To change things back to the way they were. Since women are trying to break the glass ceiling, they're actually trying to get back to the way things were, way back there. And so that is, there has to be a reformation. Things have to be reformed, right? And so that has to do with men and women. But the women have to reform themselves, and the men, well, they will reform. They'll reform themselves. So we knew that in ancient times, the mythology, the old scriptures tell us that yes, that the women were at one time on top of the world relative to power. They were goddesses, not gods. Until women eventually lost their power. The men took over, and then we had gods, the chief god in heaven, who told the goddess in heaven that she was finished. It was all over for her. And he was the chief, and he kicked her and her children out of heaven. It's mythology, but that's essentially what happened uh, with the human beings. So now we see that there is a god called Tum, or Atum. And he said that he knows how the woman came from the man. Well, we hear that. Well, we say, well, we know that women give birth to men, so therefore men come from the woman. Oh, what was he talking about then, Well, he was talking about that after the men and the chief god took over, they instituted a campaign to reform the women. They couldn't have women going around thinking that they were still boss some kind of way, so they had to reform them. And they did. They reformed, they shaped women according to the desire of the men. The men wanted women to be apologetic. They wanted them to be submissive. And they wanted them to redeem themselves for some sin that they never committed. Yes, and women are still trying to redeem themselves. So, this is what the god Tum meant. He was saying that men have transformed, reformed, reshaped the women. He remade them. Therefore, the women came from him in terms of their personality, in terms of their behavior towards the men. And so now women are trying to get back. Well, I presume they're trying to get back to their old status when they were more or less like, on top of the world. Number one. But they're going to have to transform themselves. They're going to have to get rid of whatever it is in them that keeps them subservient to men, oh, it's not going to work for them. You can't go around subservient to those who want you to be subservient to them and expect to break away from this being subservient. How are you going to break away from it when you continue this very behavior? So they've got, women have to go through a transformation. They have to get rid of those personality characteristics that keep them submissive, submitting themselves to men. These very characteristics that men more or less implanted in the women when they were going through the transformation process in the first place. When the men wanted to transform the women to carry out the will of the men. We see this all through religious scriptures, where a transformation takes place, and the God that has transformed or been transformed says that he has come to carry out the will of the Father. He has been transformed. He has been conditioned. He has been formed to carry out the will of the Father. Oh, the same thing happened with the women. They had been formed, shaped, to carry out the will of men, i.e., the Father. And this is what they had been doing for probably hundreds of thousands of years. The women say that some women say that they want to be led by her man or her husband or whatever. This is what some of them want. With this attitude, they'll never break free of the power that men wield over them. They've got to make a change. They've got to change that around. They got to change the idea that they want to be led by men. This is why now they're in a struggle to break the glass ceiling. Being led by men got them in a subservient situation where now they're trying to get out, but still you have some women who say that they want to be led by men. Well, that doesn't sound right, you know? And so they've got to reform themselves, and this takes us back to the personality characteristics that must be erased. And that power, that energy that supported these personality characteristics can be sublimated and used to bring about the reformed woman. That energy that women are using now to serve men must be taken and used in order to transform themselves and to reinforce continually this transformation that they want to bring about. They must carry out their own will, not the will of the Father. They've got to make the change, you see. Now, changing these personality characteristics, which at this point we'll say, well, they're bad personality characteristics because they would certainly have to be gotten rid of in order for the woman to be reformed, to reform herself, and to take her, let's say, natural position in the world. Yeah. She's got to get rid of those characteristics so that she can carry out her own will and be the person that she can be. Okay. Thank you and subscribe.